Homemade beef jerky. Sweet onion teriyaki recipe. 1 teaspoon each of coarse ground black pepper, meat tenderizer, basil, oregano, minced garlic, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 3 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 tablespoons each of liquid smoke and Worcestershire sauce, 3 tablespoons each of brown sugar and soy sauce, 6 to 8 ounces of honey, 15 ounces of regular teriyaki sauce, and 8 ounces of teriyaki with green onion and garlic. Okay, let's get started. We're going to incorporate all the marinade ingredients and set this aside. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go over a few tips that might help you out. The first tip I'd like to share is your meat choice. You will need to pick a cut that is lean, doesn't have very much fat through it. The fat doesn't dry and it causes it to spoil a lot quicker. And if there's any excess fat around the edges, you'll need to cut this off. Now that we've talked about the cut of meat you need, we're going to talk about the type of meat you choose. We have seen it made from a large variety of meats: beef, pork, turkey, chicken, fish, pheasant, buffalo, elk, antelope, venison, even alligator, duck, wild boar, rattlesnake, kangaroo, ostrich, alpaca. There's so many to choose from. Whatever your preference is, it's your choice. You can experiment and go as wild or as mild as you'd like. Today I'm using top round. You can use London broil, flank steak, sirloin, eye round, whatever you choose. Now that you've picked out the cut of meat you want, we're going to talk a little bit about slicing. If you ask your butcher when you get the meat, sometimes they'll do this for you for free or for a small fee. You just have to ask. If you're cutting it yourself, it's a good idea to place it in the freezer for an hour and a half or 2 hours. It'll be firmer to where you can slice the thin slices. Another decision you need to make is, do you want to cut it against the grain or with the grain? If you cut it against the grain, it makes it a little easier to chew, but it also falls apart easier. The thickness you cut it is up to you. Some like it sliced very thin. I like mine sliced a little more on the thick side. I like it to be a little more bendable and a little softer chew. But then again, whichever way you like it. As you can see here, we've got ours already cut from the butcher. So we're just going to cut it down in size somewhat. You can use kitchen shears, you can sharp knife, whatever you have. Cutting's complete. Now I'm going to add the meat and the marinade together. I use a long baking dish, and I usually put a little bit of the marinade in the bottom of the dish like this so that the meat isn't touching the bowl. We want each piece to get separated and have a good marinade on it. I lay mine out like this, but you might want to take an easier route and use a Ziploc baggie. Just put the marinade in the baggie and add the meat and seal it really good. Make sure that it's sealed, and then place it in a bowl or pan in the refrigerator. Then every couple hours or so you can go in and turn the bag over or kind of squish it with your hands to mix the marinade and the meat up a little bit. You can marinate this anywhere from 6 to 24 hours. The longer you leave it in, the more flavor it absorbs. We've had this marinate for almost 24 hours now, so it's time to take it out and we'll get it ready to put it on the dehydrator. Before placing the beef jerky on the dehydrator trays, you want to take off as much of the excess marinade as possible. You want it to be dry as you can get it. So take a sheet pan like this and line it with paper towels, and then lay your meat on it and it'll absorb the excess marinade. We have a Waring Pro 5-tray food dehydrator. This one we purchased from QVC. It costs, I believe, about $80, but you can find them at different prices, higher, up to $300, I believe. This one's been working out pretty good for us so far. The meat has drained on the paper towels. Now it's time to line our dehydrator trays with it. We're going to place like-sized pieces, as many as we can, on a tray, but you want to make sure that they're not overlapping each other. Sometimes it's okay that they touch, but you want air to be able to circulate around the pieces. Once your trays are full, stack them, put the lid on, and turn the unit on for high for at least the first couple hours, and then I cut mine back to medium until the process is completed. Okay, there's a couple things that's going to determine the time that your jerky stays in the dehydrator. The thickness of the cut and also the wattage of the machine you're using. Mine normally takes between 3.5 to 4 hours. I start checking mine when it's been in about 3 hours and then about every half hour after that. You want to touch it and see if it looks and it feels dry. The sugar and honey that we use causes it to be shiny. And when you bend it, you want it to be pliable. You don't want to leave it in so long that when you bend it, it snaps in two. The jerky's done, so remove it from the trays and set it aside to cool. You want to store it in an airtight container. Mason jars work great for this. It gives it the longest shelf life. They don't recommend you use the Ziploc baggies because they collect moisture and it causes bacteria to grow. And remember, this is not commercially made, so there's no preservatives in it. Mine, it doesn't matter. I use Ziploc baggies because it never lasts long anyway. One more thing I'd like to share with you before I go. My grandkids likes it shredded like you can buy in the small canisters at the stores. So I use my little Ninja chopper and chop it up for them. Now remember, you can adjust the recipe to suit yourself. Don't be afraid to experiment with the different meats and ingredients. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I hope it has helped you. Now, go make some jerky.